In Civil Site Design version 23 onwards, users will have the option of creating sample lines along a string based on the position of a Civil Site Design or a Civil 3D Cogo point. For Civil Site Design Cogo points, this can be very useful, particularly when you're using the points by polyline for the lot grading. In this particular example, we've used the points by polyline to create Cogo points referencing our road design around individual polylines. For those Cogo points to accurately read the road design, we need to have sample lines wherever they have been created. To do this, we can go to the Roads tab and Edit panel and click on Resample Sections, and then click on our string that we want to resample. In this case, this is Road 2. In the form, we can go to the Use Points button. In here, the first thing you would do is click on the Apply button to ensure that these points are going to be used. You then choose your point group. Now, by default, we put all of the points by polyline onto a group called Lot, so they're automatically being assigned. So you can go ahead and pick that group. Really, the next part is determining how these particular points should be picked up and filtered. Now, the initial purpose of this tool was to work with surveys, so you could pick up Cogo points that were part of a survey. To get this to work for our purposes, what we've done is basically set these values up in the following manner. So first of all, the chainage range. So if you're looking for Cogo points within a certain range of chainages, then you can change that chainage value. You can then alter these values. So minimum distance between sections will basically say, look, I'm prepared to have a sample line created at least every 10 mil. Okay. I'm also happy to have the rounding of these values set to the nearest 10 mil. I'm also happy for the software to search for points 10 mil from the first sample that it creates. So apply angle to buffer width, which is 5. You can keep that value as is. Maximum offset would determine the corridor width. So if we're going to be searching 20 meters, that's 10 meters left and 10 meters right of the center line of our string. So if you happen to have Cogo points that you want to pick up that are outside that 20 meter range, then you need to increase that value. Compute standard sections means that it will incorporate the standard sections that we already have set in here, which are every 10 meters. If you uncheck that box, the only sample lines that will be created are for those where it picks up an actual point. So it's always worth having the compute standard section box checked. Let's click on OK and then click on OK. That string has now been sampled, and you can see the additional sample points that are added based on the location of those points. Now you may find that as you add in extra points that you have to resample your string for the sample lines to be added. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set up a very quick thread which will speed this process up, which means that you don't have to go and resample every string individually, then go and update the points to have them read that sample line elevation. If you go to the Roads tab Workflow panel, you'll see Run Threads. We're going to click on the pull down and click Thread Editor. In there is a thread already created in the standard build, which is called Resample All. We're going to check that one. Then in here, all we're going to do is we're going to leave the resample string entry in there, which will resample every string in the project. Then we're going to get it to update the Cogo points, because the Cogo points are using the updated sample positions. So to do that, we're going to go down to the Plan Production section and click on Update Cogo Points and click on Add Action. We're going to simply say that we want it to be added below the selected entry. Click on Add Action, and you can see there that that's now going to be working. So it'll resample the strings and then update the Cogo points to make sure that the elevations are using those new samples. You can leave the Synchronize Labels entry in there if you want, but if you do want to remove it, you can either uncheck it or you can select it and hit the Delete button. To run that thread, you can either click on the Compute Thread button down here, or we can click Close and use the Run Threads tool, where all of our threads are stored. So we can go Resample All, Compute Thread. That will now go ahead and update our sample line positions, and then in turn update the Cogo point elevations. If you're a Civil 3D user, you've also got the addition of being able to pick up the Civil 3D Cogo points for positions of sample lines. So in this example, we've got a couple of Cogo points created in Civil 3D, and we want sample lines to be created at those particular locations. I'm going to go to Resample Sections, click on the road here, and then go Use Points. And in here, what we're going to do is link a Civil 3D Cogo Point group to this particular form. And to do that, we have to click on this little button here. In here, we can choose the point group that we want to use. So in this case, those 2 points are actually found under this point group here, and I can link those points in. Click on Create Update. All that means is that that point group will now be displayed in this form. So I'm going to click on the point group in here. I'm going to leave the remaining values here as very, very small. Okay, so it ensures that I'm going to be picking up these points. Add them to the computer standard sections. Again, as we said earlier on in the video, ensure that you've got the apply button checked. Click OK, and then click OK. And those Cogo points have now been added as sample lines along our string.